Fun with Failure.
Hello, this is Dallas with Fun with Failure. We have a really nice lineup today. We've got 9 wonderful stories from Reddit, and one that I'm really excited about, which is a viewer submission. So buckle up your ears because I'm about to take them on a ride of their life. Here we go. Last night my car was broke down as I was exiting off a busy freeway. My car was in the middle of the lane in a 3-lane exit, on a steep uphill slant, and no shoulder in sight. The fun was rapidly draining for my night. I put on my hazard lights and popped my hood so people know to go around me. With only my hazard lights on, people would just wait behind me indefinitely and honk. At this point, I don't really know what to do besides call a tow truck. And all that was going through my head at the time was, I'm that guy blocking traffic. So, I called the tow truck and wait. Due to the long wait and many angry commuters, the police were called. In hindsight, I probably should have called them myself. When the officer arrives, he pulls up behind me and comes to my driver's side window. I can tell he's in a pretty bad mood, so I'm walking on eggshells right off the bat. After some brief questioning, he tells me that he's going to lay down some flares and just sit tight. Here's where crap started going downhill, literally. He grabs the flares out of his SUV and begins to walk toward the car while igniting them. I look in my rearview mirror and to my horror, completely unbeknownst to him, his police SUV begins to slowly roll backwards. Not much thinking is happening on my part other than, did he really just fracking forget to put his crap in park? And I just sort of do the first thing that comes to my mind. Bad idea. I leap out of my car and unintelligibly start screaming, "Dude! Dude! Dude!" as I run toward him with my hands in the air. The look of bewilderment on his face is something I'll never forget. The flares tumbled out of his hands and begun rolling into the neighboring lanes as he put his hands on his gun and the other in the air, and gesturing for me to stop freaking immediately. If it weren't for the tense nature of the situation, I probably would have laughed at the noise that came out of him. It sounded something like, "What?" I just put my hands up and screamed at him, "Your car is rolling away!" Which probably sounded like a foreign language due to the amount of adrenaline pulsing through me. Taking his hands off his gun, he puts his hands on his hips and gives me a huge "F you" glare, and he disdainfully states, "Yeah, there's someone in it." This is written entirely by my mother, as it happened to her, and she wanted to give this Reddit thing a go. Today I fracked up as I was going shopping with my son and his girlfriend when we went to the clothing store. My boss told me that he had no socks that fit him, so I thought it would be nice if I could get him a pair. I looked around in the sock section, and I came across these retro socks, as well as his size, with retro controllers designed on them, so I put them on my shoulder. My hair got in the way as I was looking for clothes for my youngest. I forgot the socks were there entirely. I checked out and the cashier didn't notice the socks on my shoulders either. I got my bags and left, and soon I noticed in the taxi with my son and his girlfriend that I still had the socks on my shoulder. We couldn't stop laughing, and I figured it was too late to hand them back in. That is my story of my accidental heist. No one would expect a 16-year-old girl who is blind and has a mild form of cerebral palsy to independently fill glasses of milk without spilling a drop. However, I've been able to do this perfectly 97% of the time, until 4 years ago. The disaster occurred not because I couldn't pour the milk, it was all about the drinking. My then 3-year-old brother wanted some milk because he saw me pouring some for myself. I obliged and I poured his milk. I managed to pour both of our glasses of milk perfectly, but as I was going to lift my glass to my mouth and take a drink, my hand had a muscle spasm. This caused me to drop the milk all over the table. I turned around to grab a towel to stop the flood. Following a muscle spasm, my hand sometimes remains a fist. I accidentally punched my brother's glass of milk across the room. His milk bounced off the wall and landed on the floor in a spray of glass and milk with a loud crack. When this catastrophe was over, milk covered the table and the floor. Also, there was glass everywhere from my brother's cup. I didn't know that the silverware drawer that was connected to our table was open. My milk had spilled into the silverware drawer as well. The silverware was floating in 3 inches of milk. My mom came rushing into the room after hearing the commotion. She was furious. My mom had to clean up the table, the floor, sweep up the broken glass, and wash the silverware that she had just done an hour ago. I learned many valuable lessons that day. Now I make sure that when I pour something for someone else or myself, I do it over the sink. Also, I use plastic cup ones instead of glass ones. I was next in line at a gas station today when I overheard a person in front of me putting $3 on his gas pump. I found it strange, and I thought I should help. As he walked away and I walked up, the cashier was still ringing up his gas. I told her to stop. She agreed it was strange, and I gave her an extra $20 to put on the man's pump. The cashier thanked me, and she offered to give me a free gift card, which I declined. I then paid for my drink and left. As I was driving up the road, I saw the same man getting out of his car in a parking lot. The problem was, it was an Avis parking lot. The dude was just topping off a rental to return it. He didn't need the extra $20. Avis is right before my interstate on-ramp, so turning around to get my money back wasn't worth the time. The only saving grace is, I remember seeing a charity donation on the counter at the gas station. I hope the cashier took the difference and donated it to charity at least. This happened yesterday. Had a long day at the office and I didn't get a lunch break. I ordered Buffalo Wild Wings carryout and picked it up after leaving work. I had a tub of medium boneless wings and a side of fries. I was starving after not eating all day, so I decided to eat it on my way home. After finishing the wings, I started on the fries, dipping them in the excess sauce left. What never crossed my mind was that the fact that it was summer and that the AC was on high. As I lifted the fry slathered in sauce, I take a bite. The air from the AC caught it and managed to throw the sauce into my eye. Cue the burning sensation that was way more painful than I could have imagined. Reflexively, I closed my eye and yelled some choice words, only to realize that I was blowing right through a red light in front of the town's police station. Cue more choice words. I made it home with one eye open and no more red lights ignored, hopefully. Now waiting to see whether the traffic camera in front of the station is actually plugged in or not. This happened the other day. After a fairly tiring day at work, I came home to relax after the day's events. I was watching Netflix but ended up falling asleep on the couch. When I sit to watch a show, I like sitting with my legs tucked underneath me. I just find it comfortable. It's comfortable, but only when you don't fall asleep in that position and wake up an hour or two later with your leg completely numb. I ain't talking no pathetic tingly numb. I ain't talking no TV fuzz numb. My leg was so ungodly numb that it felt like a slab of lifeless meat somehow attached itself to my hip. I couldn't feel it at all. Looking at the clock, I realized I hadn't taken out the dog in a while, and the poor dude probably had to use the bathroom. Stupidly, I stood up before I started regaining feeling in my leg. Even more stupidly, I tried walking and shaking out the numbness. I couldn't feel if I was picking up my leg or not, because it was so dang numb. So I kept on walking, not realizing I was actually crunching my foot underneath myself. I heard cracking, but that wasn't unusual for me. My back, neck, etc. usually crack. So I kept on walking to the front to grab my dog's leash, completely oblivious to the clubfoot's consequences underneath me. As I keep walking forward, I began to feel a faint searing pain, like completely crippling pain in my ankle. I was confused, because all I was doing was walking, until I realized that I was putting all my weight on my turned under ankle as I was stepping. Now, I'm clawing at the walls for support and my dog is barking to go out, and I'm swearing so loud my grandfather could probably hear me in the grave. Looking at my foot, my ankle's already swollen and turned in, and I'm completely mortified. The pain has become more and more unbearable as my leg slowly regains its feeling. This sucks. I somehow make my way back to the couch and call my brother to get the ice pack. Explaining why I need it is probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. But nevertheless, he was the mobile one and I needed the ibuprofen from the cabinet 383,948,283 feet away. I can never injure myself from something decent like sports or adventures. It's always something stupid like this. I guess a sleeping bag can be added to my list of embarrassing injuries. which includes tripping over a lunchbox, falling upstairs, and other ridiculous stupid incidents. This happened this past weekend, when I had no particular plans for the day in mind, and there was no need to hurry. Since I had no need to hurry and I'm relatively familiar with my house, I decided to see if I could accomplish waking up, getting showered, brushing my teeth, and getting dressed before opening my eyes, because I'm weird. I stepped out of bed and felt my way to the door, donned my bathrobe from the towel hook and opened the door. So far so good. I fumbled my way down the hallway, misplacing a few books on the bookshelf, and accidentally playing some improvised atonal and arrhythmic music on the piano before taking a lift toward the bathroom. I felt my way to the sink, loaded up my toothbrush and scrubbed my pearly whites, rinsed my toothbrush, and hung my bathrobe on the hook on the back of the door. Still doing alright. I felt for the towel rack and thankfully I had a fresh towel hanging up, so I stepped into the shower and set the temperature. Once I was all squeaky clean and dried off, I wrapped the towel around myself, foregoing the bathrobe until my sight returned. Once back out into the hallway, I felt for the piano to make my right turn, carefully feeling to make sure I didn't walk into the bookshelf, when I felt my cat rubbing herself against my leg. Proud to have made it this far and not wanting to lose this pointless bet I made with myself, I proceeded towards my room, shuffling my feet so to avoid stepping on the cat. Despite my best efforts, she insists on being stepped on. It's one of her favorite hobbies, and managed to somehow run headlong into the towel dangling near my feet. Fearing this fluffy predator, she leapt into action, subduing the towel. She managed to tangle herself up in the towel, and was quite content, until my full weight was tumbling down towards her and her prey. It was at this time I figured that I lost my game, so I opened my eyes just in time to shift away from crushing the cat, and careening headlong into the credenza. As I lay, prone and naked, amidst the narrowly missed shards of wine goblet on the floor, I turned my head to see the cat walk down the hallway and rub herself against the feet of my roommates, who had come downstairs to see what the commotion was. All in all, the damage wasn't too bad. The only things shattered were 3 goblets, 2 bottles of wine, and my dignity. No cats were harmed in the making of this mishap. So, this frack up actually happened today. I have a big yellow lab who lounges all over the house. He's sort of like a giant Twinkie that doesn't really move, and gets in the way sometimes, but can also be great to snuggle with if you're stressed. Now, one of the various habits is tracking you with his big brown eyes, from the moment you enter into the room to the moment that you depart, or something distracts him. So, over the years I've developed a game where I'd enter the room, snap my eyes on him and try to stare him down as I navigate the house to do whatever I need to do. For the record, he tends to win unless there's something that gets his attention, so the scoreboard is relatively even, I would say. On the day of this particular frack up, I was walking through the kitchen, and I happened to be testing out a new Nikon camera with a stabilizer. So, holding the stabilizer in one hand and balancing with the other, I stalked the kitchen like a velociraptor with IBM, trying to get my perfect balance. It's freaking hard to get used to it. As I'm working away, I catch my dog staring at me. He's not moving his head or anything, he's just following me with his big brown eyes. Naturally, I get sucked into his gaze, ready to beat this fluffy motherfracker into another stare down, while I continue to stalk around the kitchen. Unfortunately, I forgot an important detail in the layout of our kitchen. We have a couple overhead cabinets that extend slightly beyond the counter, and you have to be careful around them so that you don't whack your head on it. I, being a tall, lanky bastard, don't usually have to worry about them, as I come up to chest height with the bottom of them, and I can navigate them easily. However, as I was testing out the stabilizer, I adopted a crouch to get lower to the floor and stabilize myself. That, in addition to my intense stare down with my lab, afforded the perfect condition for me to whack my head onto the fracking corner of the cabinets. I slammed into them hard and jerked back instinctively, but due to my awkward position, I completely fracked up my center of gravity and sort of kneeled sideways, slamming my chest into the edge of the counter, cracking my shiny new Nikon lens in the process, and dropping like a sack of potatoes. As I fell to the ground, the bottom of the stabilizer sucker punched me in the balls in the most effective manner possible. All at once my vision dances, my breathing shallows, and my nuts explode in a tempest of agony. As I slump on the ground, clutching my broken fracking Nikon, it takes me a couple of minutes to recover, but I do eventually. Of course, Rufus McDoofus ambles over to ensure I'm alright, licking my face and generally rubbing in yet another victory. I ended up cracking the lens, which put me out a couple of $100, and I plan to order another. Injury-wise, my forehead is throbbing but not cut. My chest is slightly bruised, my groin aflame, and my dignity in shreds. I think I'm going to put a wide-angle lens on next time and film my dog in funny fracking hats. That'll show that little bastard who's Stairmaster. Finally, happy to be reporting on a TIFU that happened to me just yesterday at my cabin in North Georgia. My family and I enjoy spending most of our weekends in the summer up at Seed Lake. One such activity we love doing is paddleboarding, which, for those who do not know, is where you paddle around on a surfboard big enough not to tip over. The name is self-explanatory. So, I went out on a paddleboard with my 90-pound yellow Labrador named Dyson. I know he's not ideal for this sort of activity, given the issue of balance and all, but he's extremely chill for most activities. So he's definitely not a nuisance on a big, sturdy paddleboard, for the most part. In the beginning, we were actually fine, with me paddling about 15 feet from the shore, and him sitting and watching minnows and wildlife. It was peaceful, serene, and relaxing. The water was nice. It was deep green and clear enough to see a couple of feet down. So we were feeling good, up until the point that a snake slithered from the bank. If you've ever seen a snake swim, it instantly ups the fracno factor up to about 100 points. And this is from someone who loves danger noodles in general. But a venomous one slithering through the water, heading straight for us, is entirely another matter. I went stone still, hoping it would just go past us as though we didn't exist. And it actually seemed to be doing just that. Unfortunately, my god dang 90-pound spineless sack of crap of a dog had other plans. As he took one look at the snake and then one at me, he leapt off the paddleboard in the opposite direction. Yes, I know, he did the smart thing, but still, frack him. I, being a tall, uncoordinated motherfracker, struggled to keep my balance as my dog jumped off, but he tipped the paddleboard too far. So, I ended up pinwheeling off the paddleboard and landing right on the motherfracking snake. I went under for a few seconds, certain it was going to sink its fangs into me at any point, before surfacing again. In reality, it wiggled against me for like a second, and then it swam away. Immediately, I swam for the paddleboard, cursing madly. The snake was nowhere to be seen. Probably noping the hell out of there, heading back to his muddy hidey hole. I could still feel the initial moment of shock when I hit the water, certain I was dead, but adrenaline probably made it way worse than it was. From there, I hightailed it back to the boathouse, where Dingus the dog sat on the dock, panting innocently and waiting for me. He knew what he did, betraying me like that. But I could never prove it to anyone, not my family or my friends, or even you guys. But he did it on purpose, totally and unequivocally. And to top everything off, just as I came up to the dock, my dog stood up and tried to hop on the paddleboard again. But this time I tilted it up so he fell in the water. Revenge is a biatch, you big yellow baby, and I will never forget this. Edit. As many of you have pointed out, yes, the snake probably wasn't venomous, given I was in northern Georgia. And another good point that you made was that snakes probably can't strike in the water. Both of these are valid points, but try to see it from where I'm coming from. Wobbly paddleboard, giant marshmallow brain dog, danger noodle swimming straight for me, my lanky butt struggling not to tip in. It doesn't matter if it's just a harmless water snake, I still get the hell out. This happened a few days ago. I went to a pool party at my friend's house, which includes a slip and slide. When I was younger, I always wanted a slip and slide, but my parents thought it was too dangerous, so I had to make do using my friends. So naturally, at the age of 23, I was super excited to finally be able to play on one as much as I wanted. What I didn't account for was the fact that I was much taller than I used to be, and therefore am a lot further from the ground than I was when I was a child. I also didn't factor in how much faster I can run and how high I can jump. This all ended with me running at the slide at top speed, jumping as high as I could, and doing a big old belly flop, only to balance a reported 6 inches in the air. My friend might have been exaggerating. Before having quite a rough landing. Instantly I knew I was going to regret this, as I already had a bad back from a car accident I had back in December, but I brushed it off. The next day, Monday, I woke up unable to move without being in excruciating pain. My husband had to help me out of bed. I am sporting a pretty nasty bruise right above my crotch. I visited my chiropractor, who confirmed this was indeed the stupidest way that he has heard someone hurt their back, and told me no heavy lifting for a few days, so I had to take the rest of the week off of work. That was a fun explanation for the use of medical leave. Also, my mother spent 10 minutes singing her "I Told You So" song. Thank you for listening, and if you like those stories, please give it a thumbs up. I have a special thanks to Sara for her submission, whose story I was honored to be able to read. Also, I'd like to give a thanks to the incredible skilled writers at Reddit who allowed me to read their stories here. If you have a story that you're brave enough to share, please send it to me at funwithfailure@gmail.com and I will put that in a video. I'm planning on making more shorts this week and I hope you enjoy those. I'm also going to do the Story Jockey series, but I'm going to probably read something a little bit more intelligent this week. It's actually going to be a short story from Douglas Adams in one of his Hitchhiker books. I really love it. It's one of my favorites. If you know of a short story in a book that you thought was funny, tell me about it. I'd love to be able to read it. I've also got a few more in mind that I'd like to share. Well, I'm off, and until next time, you can't avoid failure. You might as well have fun with it.